that's Belgium, and I'm here talking to Sam and Mark, developers of the JUnit 5 platform. Platform? Library.
It's definitely a platform,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's also a platform.
So exciting, we've got JUnit 5 released, people are using it, and what kind of features can people look forward to?
Well, there's a lot of changes, right, coming in from JUnit 4. The basis is basically the same, like annotation approach, for tests and stuff like that. But we have some new features we can use with Java 8, right? So lambda expressions and method references. So for things like asserting an exception, instead of having like an expected exception annotation or something like that, you can have it in a little lambda expression. And similarly for timeouts and stuff like that. And maybe you want to talk about dynamic tests.
The extension model is also a major point, I would say. So now all extensions are actually composable. You can implement multiple interfaces for extensions and reuse those. That's the major change to what we had in JUnit 4.
Yeah, and actually the programming model meets the extension model a bit more in JUnit 5. So as you mentioned, there's more options for extending the framework, and developers can even use that on their own for things like dynamically deciding whether or not a test should be executed. We call that conditional test execution, and developers could have like special annotations that say only run this test on Mac OS, or only run this on Java 9 or Java 10 and stuff like that. So there's lots of things that are much easier to do with JUnit 5 than would have been the case for JUnit 4. Yeah.
And it's much more integrated with Java 8, you mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. So JUnit 4 is still backwards compatible to Java 5, so it can't use any of the new nice features. And now we have lots of new APIs, like the Sam just mentioned, assert throws, where you can check for an exception given a code block. And this code block can just now be a lambda expression, right? And lots of places where you also use suppliers, like for computing failure messages, only when we need them, because most of the times the test will pass, right? And then you shouldn't be able to have to display that failure message. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and another thing with lambda expressions, right? So in JUnit 4, you could have like a parameterized test, right? So have a different ways to run the same test. But with lambda expressions, we have something even more powerful called dynamic tests with JUnit Jupyter. So you can have a test factory where you create like a stream or a collection of tests on the fly, and you decide programmatically what those tests are made of, like the actual code that's going to be executed is the test body and the test name and things like that. So we definitely have some more opportunities with Java 8.
That sounds really useful. I can already think of some uses for that myself when you're coding something dynamic. So I have, say, a dynamic environment, but I want to validate different parts of the environment. So now I'm using JUnit 4, I should say. So
okay.
It's one of the reasons I'm asking you these questions. So sure. It sounds like it's got a lot of leverage. So JUnit, how can people get the most from it?
The most? It's a good question, right?
Yeah.
So I would say basically, start off with your unit testing like you normally would, but if you have needs for something dynamic, maybe you're pulling stuff from like the database or like out of a CSV file or something like that, you might want to take advantage of these dynamic tests and things like that. Also, the extension model is much richer than it was in JUnit 4, so maybe the average developer wouldn't use that so much, but maybe if you're more of a senior level developer in your team and you want to provide some common functionality for tests within the ecosystem of all your applications, then you might find the extension model much more powerful, and you might want to look into that.
Yeah, you can now combine things you couldn't previously combine easily, like Spring and parameterized tests, for example. So all the extensions really are meant to be used together, and I think that's where the power comes from. But we are aware that most people will have some large test suites written in JUnit 4, or even JUnit 3 for that matter. And so we provide a gentle migration path. So we could write new tests in JUnit 5, try it out, see how it feels, and then migrate those old tests one by one. Or there's now even a migration tool, which is not written by us, but by someone else, so from the community, to migrate all the tests. So that's lots of options there to just try it, and doesn't hurt, we hope.
Yeah, and actually getting back to the first thing you said the JUnit 5 platform, right? So actually it is now a platform. It's not just the testing framework. JUnit Jupyter is the new testing framework for programming model and extension model. There's actually an underlying platform now, so people can write different testing frameworks. Like there's already some out there for like Scala and Groovy and Kotlin and stuff like that, like Spexy and Spec and some other things. So along those lines, we also have support for running JUnit 3 tests and JUnit 4 tests and JUnit 5 tests, or any of these other testing frameworks, all at the same time on this new JUnit platform. So that's also another big plus for the community there.
That's pretty cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.